conferences for the last few years, also have a program in which we pool funds and do a call for research proposals from faculty at member institutions. The group that we have arrayed here on the stage today were recipients of the first round of funds out of last year's call for proposals. There was a call for proposals this year as well that is just closed, and we're in the process of selecting recipients. And then next year, sometime in early 2009, we'll circulate another call for proposals that will be managed this time around out of LSE. So all of you who've attended here can keep an eye out for that announcement as well, and hopefully participate in some way with one of the 4 partner institutions in a similar call for collaborative proposals. With that very brief introduction, I want to turn the stage over to the faculty who have received grants in the past and have been working on projects so that they can give you a sense of what kind of progress they've made, and hopefully also giving you an idea of what kinds of collaboration the GPPN has at least supported in the past. The theme changes slightly from year to year. In this first year, which was sponsored by Xiaobo, the theme was connected to China. In the second year, which was sponsored by Columbia University, it was a broad call for proposals on public policy, and the theme for the coming year to be sponsored by LSE hasn't been set yet. So that'll be clear to you in the announcement. But all of the projects that are represented here do all have some sort of connection to both public policy and China. And with that brief introduction, I'll turn the stage over to my colleagues. Thanks.
All right. Actually, only 2 projects. 2 of us on the right, and then 3 of them in a minute. We'll say something later on. Let me first introduce a little bit about our project. This is partner Professor Qi from the Tsinghua University's School of Public Policy and Management. We met last year when I was a visiting professor at Tsinghua School of Public Policy and Management. And my field is political science, and my research interest is on 2 issues actually quite related to this project. By the way, there's a misprint. It says our project's title is Local Relations and the Environmental Regulation in China is actually Central Local Relations. That's a key phrase. Central local relations, not just local relations. And my research interests are twofold. One is about politics regulation in China. As we know, China is transforming from an old encompassing state to something of a new role. I'm finishing up a book called From Player to Referee, suggesting that Chinese state is trying to very much to transform itself from a used to be what, it was this no game, that's, player, coach, referee, all in one. Now trying to withdraw from being the player, direct player, to something like a referee in a game, it's market economy. And that process, of course, is long and arduous and sometimes quite turbulent, as we can see from the recent crisis of food, dairy products, just being one of the most recent one. In fact, I call this a tale of 2 crises. One in Wall Street in New York, the other is probably unfolded in China at the same time, which is quite interesting. China in a different stage of capitalist development. And same thing, it's something like 100 years ago, the United States experienced similar things. But this is China today. Anyway, that's my research interest. The other interest I have is on central local relations, which is also theoretically very interesting in political science, because federalism has been a kind of a heated debate concept in the political science mainstream. And I'm interested in central local relations in China. And Professor Qi is an expert on China's environmental issues, and with a special focus on its public policy aspect of this issue. So 2 of us, it's a quite natural fit in terms of proposing this project, which is, I think, both theoretical and policy implications. So we start talking and discussing, and we make the proposal and accept it as one of the project the GPPN support. Well, the basic components of our projects are the following. We'll have 2 workshops. One in November, actually is November 22nd, I think, this year. Another one will be May next year. I should backtrack a little bit. You notice the title is a more comparative. The rationale behind that is that, as Professor Xu yesterday from Beida on the panel yesterday mentioned that one of the key problems China faces today on environmental challenges is this central local relations, and that has been quite an important issue and challenge. And as we think about it, we want to think, in terms of public policy, can we learn, sort of compare the China experience with that of, say, United States? Even though the United States is a federal system, but it's in terms of size, in terms of many of the local central relations, it's interesting dynamic. But then also think of France as a much more unitary system like China. It's a smaller in size, but it's unitary, in a sense more similar in that sense with China. So we want that kind of three-way comparison, at least at this point we want to do that. So the first workshop will be mostly, we invited local regulators from Chinese local environmental agencies, and plus some sort of policy experts from the United States. We actually, Professor Chi will say a little bit about that. And local, probably European experts that were residing in China today. And someone from Xiaobo, Richard Baum, Professor Baum, will probably work with us on the project. And then we'll have a second one, which is much larger in scale. Next May, we'll invite directly from Europe and the United States to attend. And the final product would be a collection of papers written by the participants. And now that we know there's a new journal called Global Policy, I think some of our papers could be. That's one outlet, we think, and then another one maybe on the publication of an edited volume. So far, we have, besides preparing the workshop, we have done some field visits, two of us, plus some research assistants to some locales in China, talking to local EPA officials. And with that, I'll let, and then we have a preliminary workshop with former EPA, U.S. EPA officials, and I'll let Professor Chi say something about it.
Well, basically, Professor Lee has covered everything we have planned to do and what we have done so far for the project. And we did have this preliminary workshop in April, and where we invited scholars here in China and some scholars and practitioners in the United States. And that one in particular, the former, well, actually then, it was still serving, Dr. Roger Montella was still serving as the Consul General in the US EPA, and he will also come back with his team in this November workshop. And, well, a few more words about the nature of this work. The environmental degradation has become such a big challenge here in China. It's also a very big concern for the rest of the world. And when we talk about environmental regulation, we normally focus on the relationship between government and business. However, in this system of ours, we found the relationship between different levels of government is also very, very important, and maybe even more important than any other relationships. That's why when Professor Liu and Professor Richard Baum of Xiaobo, we get together and we talk about this issue. We thought, well, this is probably one very important approach approach to this environmental degradation, environmental protection problem. And let's give two examples. One is in our environmental protection law, 1989 version, and it is provided that local government are responsible for environmental quality within the territory, within their jurisdiction. However, we normally see the lack of motivation from the local government for environmental protection, and lack of capacity, and also lack of a pressure from bottom-up pressure from the general public, pressure on the local government for better environmental regulation. one of the problems we see is one of the phenomena we see is that the local government actually respond very promptly to anything that coming from the central government. In this case, the performance review is very important for their political promotion. And when the performance review, the standard focus on more on GDP, on economic development, of course, you can expect what they do. They put the economic development first, more important than environmental protection. Another thing that we realized is very, very important is physical constraints and budgetary constraints in the local government. And especially after 1994, when we have this duality of our taxation system, that has made a major shift in terms of a major shift in division of the tax collected by the local government and also collected by the central government. And that has been another major causes for the lack of capacity in the levels of the local government and lack of motivation and incentives for developing enterprises and business economic development. So any of these kind of issues has a dimension of central-local relationships. So we're hoping. So we have conducted some background study and have some preliminary results. And we're hoping through this project we can take advantage of this network and we can draw scholars and practitioners within this network or related to this network, to this research. We're hoping for the workshops we could invite some of you here in the audience and some people that to help us to advance this research. Another issue that's related to this is global climate change. For many of you, if you know that for a long time, from the very beginning, from 1980s until last year, June of 2007, the climate change has been dealt with as an international issue, as a diplomatic issue here in our country. But ever since last year, since mid-2007, this has changed a lot. All of a sudden, you see the mushrooming of institutions at the local level, local government. And a lot of local government have, since then, expressed their interest and enthusiasm in the global climate change issue. That is quite weird in many sense because they didn't even want to talk about it a year ago. So this has changed. And we have observed this central-local relationship is actually a key factor explaining why this has changed. And this change, of course, will have great implications for any future development post-Kyoto and related. So we think this is an interesting timely issue to work on, and we'll hope to get help from some of you here. Thank you very much.
I don't know how we'll proceed. Should we ask questions now, or just move to another project and you ask questions together, or feedback? How's that? The next project. Okay.
Our project is on public governance of markets. Can you hear me? Our project is on public governance of markets, comparing European and Asian experiences. It's a workshop that's jointly organised between LSE, PKU and Xiaobo. I'm from LSE, and Wu is from PKU, and Michael Storper is from Xiaobo. who are working on topics within the broad area of public government and markets. With professors from each institutions who will be sitting in and writing comments and organising the workshop. In fact, the workshop is happening directly after this meeting. I think some of the participants from the three institutions should be here. So we have the rest of the week here as well. And we decided to do this for a number of reasons, but in particular, there seems to be a conflict to us between, on the one hand, the fact that public policy is becoming increasingly globalised. And I have to say, we planned this workshop before the current financial crisis, just underlined just how far public issues of public governance and markets have become interlinked. So public policy is being globalised, as we know, but so is academic life. Increasingly, one has to be international to be a successful academic, and increasingly, researchers need to compare experiences and need to have international knowledge and comparison. On the other hand, researchers have less and less time and find it often difficult to compare different countries. Standards required are going up, and researchers often don't have time to look at different countries, but even different countries that are outside their particular geographical areas. Of course, that's especially true of young researchers who are building up their stock of academic capital. So what we actually thought we would do, we would bring together researchers who could compare their own area of research with people working in similar fields, but maybe in a different part of the world, or from a different part of the world. So it would help young researchers to develop different perspectives, help them to meet each other, which may well be valuable in the future as they go on into academic life, and generally help cross-national research linkages. More specifically, of course, we will be contributing to the training of PhD researchers. Finally, I should say there are going to be some outputs, which Michael will talk about, but it's also a way of creating some very concrete outputs from the GPPN grant and GPPN Harmonization, as I mentioned. Should we have to say something about the content of the workshop?
Thanks, Mark. We have already got 13 lovely papers, so the topics have wide range of coverage. We have country issue specific studies like British electricity market, like one paper on Chinese nuclear technology. We have also papers with regional level focus, like European Union trade agreements, like European armament market, things like that. Also on the global level, we have papers on global information economy. We have papers on great powers and technological advance. Last but not least, we have also several number of comparative studies comparing different issue areas of crossing regions and also crossing countries. Like one paper on comparative studies on information targeting, and another paper on capital concentration, rural power, and tax policy. Have a wide range of coverage in terms of issues and also in terms of country and regions. And now I turn to Michael to give a bit of an introduction to what will come out of those papers. Thanks.
Yeah, well, we wanted the workshop not to be just a place of exchange of ideas, but also an opportunity for the doctoral students who are participating to participate in a process of mutual critique and discussion, which would enable them to refine their work and put it forth in the public domain. And the first public domain that we're envisaging is the GPPN website. So we plan to, after the workshop, and with the discussion from the workshop, the participants will revise, after having gone, in other words, through what's essentially a peer review process,
they will revise, and we will publish the papers on the GPPN website, probably somewhere in the spring of 2009. And that's really it's the first step in what we would like to see the GPPN become in terms of its possibility for being a place where advanced research, cutting-edge research by doctoral students or by seasoned academics. It's a place where they can share their research online. And of course, there will also be the Global Policy Journal. But in the same way that other associations have working paper series, we see a need for this in the global public affairs realm. If you think of it, there are many specialized associations, disciplines, subject areas, but nothing really that is equivalent to a kind of an academic space out there in global public affairs. So this PhD workshop hopefully will set the example and give us some kind of movement in this direction. And hopefully, as time goes on, other doctoral students not only in the member institutions, but in the wider network that the GPPN is coming to represent, as well as the academics in them might see our website as a place where they could bring, let's say, highly advanced draft papers to the public realm to get feedback for dissemination, possibly before they go on to publish them in top-ranked academic journals. And in that way, the GPPN would become a reference point, not just for the other kinds of networking and exchange activities that we're carrying out, but also as a place where people would think, this is where I should go to see a new type of, or a new generation of truly globally oriented research in the public affairs field. So in a sense, our project has the immediate objective of bringing together these interesting doctoral students, of giving us the pleasure of working with them, but also we hope for starting a movement that will become institutionalized within the GPPN program as we go along.
It all sounds very great. I'm curious if there are difficulties or problems you have experienced in carrying out joint research. This is international efforts.
No, seriously, no. No, so far the support has been, it's quite, there's one, there's minor complaint. Obviously, this is being the first year. Also the money source, obviously, coming from three completely different financial systems. Talk about globalization, but the different academic institutions, LSE, Xiaobo, and Columbia, has somewhat a different approach to research support. And there was a little confusion because the decision was made, I believe, at the LSE level, and the money eventually comes out of Xiaobo, which is a French system. And then we wrote in a language of very much American grant proposal, because of one example is we call us co-PI, and some colleagues asked, what's PI? What is it? Primary investigator, sort of a research grant. Obviously, that's a different jargon. So there's a little bit of that. I think we have so far been just trying to understand the different system of the. I think it will eventually work out. So it'll be okay. But that's a little bit of a logistic challenge we have faced.
So I wonder if you see these programs as being the future of PhDs. I mean, traditionally, you know, the PhD is being done in a single place with a single supervisor and with very few resources, not much comparison because it's very hard to do logistically. I was sitting recently listening to a presentation by a major US university that I will not name, in which they were discussing how they were going to respond to globalization. And they were still, you know, locked into a very much a single institution model. And it seemed to me that it was very unlikely to succeed. Whereas I do think that this kind of research is really on a different thing. So do you see the GPPN, I think, has just agreed to fund 2 people from every university network to exchange across the network for up to a year each. So do you see this as a sort of a big trend or a small trend, something to go quickly along, something to go baby steps along? What's your view of the future?
Certainly it is the future. It's clear that as an academic, if you have international connections and you have comparisons, you are already ahead of many others. At the same time, you've still got to have enough depth. And I think the only way of doing that is to present your research and to compare it with people in a comparable field. I think the second point is going abroad, presenting your research abroad, particularly if you're studying in that other country, but even if you're not, does broaden your horizons. And it changes you. I was lucky enough to spend half my PhD in Paris, and it changed me and made me a much better researcher than I would have been otherwise, and one of the ways to spend time, of course. So, yes, I think getting young researchers to spend time abroad and to meet their contemporaries, and those contemporaries are young research students now, but in 10 years' time they will also be professors, and you'll get to know them, you'll make friends, you'll be able to cooperate with them. A lot of academia, it seems to me, is about not just institutional linkages, but personal linkages. And having somebody in a place you can ring up, or be able to say to somebody, oh, you get on well, what about doing a research project together? It's an incredible capital. So I think it is a seed corn for the future, and we'll hopefully see the results in probably 5 to 10 years for the group of people who are involved now.
I just want to add one more thing. I have participated in several other international PhD workshops before, but I think this one is really different. I feel really great to work with Mark and Michael. Surprisingly, we have a lot of things in common. And one of the important things is that we're actually really serious about this workshop. It's not for show at all. Think about this. I mean, it's 13 paper. We run the workshop for 2.5 days. We gave almost 2 hours to each paper. And the author only has 20 minutes to present, which means he or she has to subject to thorough investigation for another hour and a half, by 3 of us and also, other participants. So we're really serious about this. And I think this is different from some other international PhD workshops I tend to, give total 20 minutes, things like that. So we're really serious about this. We feel, all those PhD students from 3 institutions can learn a lot from it, each other among themselves. So I think it's